You're listening to The Switch. I'm your host, Stephanie Shaw. Hey, welcome to The Switch. I'm Stephanie Shaw. I'm a multi-certified holistic nutrition coach who, after finding no success with the 18 doctors and 2 world-renowned healthcare facilities I visited, decided I needed to make a switch and take my health into my own hands. Now I'm obsessed with you getting hormonally balanced and emotionally aligned. This podcast is about education, empowerment, and simple no-cost strategies you can implement right now. I'm so excited to be here with you to talk about all things health, beauty, clean living, and mindset. Ready to take your mind and body to the next level? It's time to make the switch. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Switch. I am so excited to be here today. Aparna is from the Virginia area now, but she's in Ohio. Well, she went to school in Ohio, so I'm going to claim her as an Ohioan like me. Yeah. That is always an awesome thing. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to get to know a little bit more about what you do and how you can support families. This is so exciting.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me, Stephanie. I'm really happy to be here. I'm Aparna Venkataraman. I'm the founder of Beauty and Parenting. I'm a parent coach worldwide, virtually, and also a meditation breathwork teacher and an essential oils educator and a motivational speaker. I love supporting families of anxious and sensitive children to self-regulate, using sensory self-care, using effective communication skills, using a lot of ways that they can, especially parents, can tap into setting boundaries and getting to know their inner selves, being aware of their minds and their bodies and their spirits, and just embodying more confidence in their lives so that they can just have a happier, healthier family life as well.
I love that. This is going to be so exciting, you guys. I can't wait for you to learn more. Aparna, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I have now been, this year, I've been working now with families for 20 years of my life. And it started out in my teens where I did a lot of volunteer work with families locally at nonprofits who families were really at a low income and needed a lot of resources to help them with electricity and food and shelter. And then I went on to really study psychology in college, study child development, did a lot of internships in schools, and went on to do a lot of work in hospitals with cancer patients, with children who were premature, as I was a very premature baby. And I grew up being actually a very anxious, sensitive child as well, too. I experienced a lot of bullying, and I didn't have any self-care practices up until maybe 5-6 years ago. And I just wasn't aware of how stress and anxiety affected my mind and my body nearly as much as it did, or how much I was taking on from other people in my life, especially family. And it's when we get to know ourselves, and that can be through, having a self-care practice, that can be through, having a mentor, having a community that really understands you, and you find that sense of belonging. That's when you really get to know your true self and your true essence. And so I do have a much more spiritual practice. And I know that I'm here in my purpose to help support families in connecting to their hearts as much as they can. And I'm not a parent yet, but I hope to be sometime in the future. And I've supported thousands of families of all walks of life. I've been blessed to do that, and just blessed to get to know family life and what parents really need these days too.
I love that. And I love that you said purpose, because I was just thinking that. So when you talked a little bit about your childhood and what you went through, now you were able to actually use that in order for you to support other people. And I think that's so key. Like a lot of times we think, like what's wrong with us is why is this happening to us? If you think a little deeper about it and try to think about, oh, how can I use what's happening now to help impact someone else at a greater level when I get through this? I think that totally changes the mindset. And I know that probably wasn't your mindset at 5 or 6 and someone was bullying you, but you did learn the fact that that pain had led to your purpose. So I like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And through the years of having so many different jobs and meeting families in so many different ways, I really got to understand that those were all the facets of what I needed to be able to support families on a much more comprehensive level right now, and to be
Right.
able to meet families worldwide who had in the past year with COVID and the pandemic many different needs that came up in life too, of navigating family life, navigating home and school, navigating partner relationships, all sorts of things, navigating their self-care time and their healthy eating, or what their eating was, and just yeah, ways that they could have those boundaries and still connect to themselves while having to do everything else, and
Yeah.
still feel like they're having those normal days, right?
Yeah.
Living that normal life. Yeah.
Yeah. That's hard. That the
Yeah.
last year was hard to feel normal. It's been hard for quite a while to feel normal. So that's awesome that you were able to
Right.
support people. Tell us a little bit about what sensory self-care means.
Sensory self-care is using the five senses, taste, touch, smell, sound, and sight, to tap into what your body needs. A lot of times when I'm supporting families, especially who are anxious and sensitive, I do have clients who don't identify with that, but it's a lot of needing to just tap into how stresses affect our bodies and our minds. Are we breathing very shallowly? Are we tensing up automatically at things? Are we just unable to focus because we're not tapped into our hearts?
Mhm.
And so for the longest time, before I had my own self-care practice, I wasn't taking time for myself. I was getting up in the mornings, rushing through my day, barely ate. Um, I was a school teacher at the time, and my day belonged to my job,
Yeah.
and it didn't really belong to me. And I just would put food in my mouth and be drained by the end of the day. And then by the weekend, if I had the energy to do what I wanted to do, I would go and do it, but then it would just be a temporary thing, right? So I wasn't really aware of myself, and I didn't feel more of that wholeness of life. It was just a day in, day out kind of thing too. Not that I didn't love my job, I did love it, and that was where a lot of my attention and energy went to. But um, it's a lot of tapping into those senses when you need them the most, of focusing on things when you're feeling anxious, and having ways that you can self-regulate for yourself too,
Get
and
what?
also co-regulate with your child as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's a huge part of it as well. Walk us through a couple of the senses and what suggestions you would make to a client.
Yeah, so I have here a wind chime in my room. Actually, that I well, you guys can't see it on the podcast, but it was something that was tucked away. Someone gave me as a gift, and I was like, you know what, this is going to be a special. I wanted this to be a special, like, housewarming gift for me when I, you know, settled down into a new place, and that hadn't happened yet. And so I was like, you know what, last winter I was like, I'm just going to just like put it up in my room and have that be a little like altar for myself when I'm sitting there and meditating, and just feeling that sensation of sound. So sound is really powerful. A lot of people who are on Zoom these days, working on Zoom, schooling, or maybe not schooling, but having music around you can be a really beautiful, impactful thing. And so I have a playlist that helps me to stay focused, because my mind and my body have been trained by these familiar songs. And when that happens, it's easier to get into a rhythm of doing that. It's like the same thing if you have a couple songs you like to sing, or listen to before bedtime,
Mhm.
right, with yourself or with your family, to something that'll just automatically help you get into the rhythm of what you need to do. Alternatively, I love to, with my family now, we love to sometimes have instrumental music on in the background.
Yeah.
We'll have like a music channel on our TV or YouTube, and we'll play it during, training, or if it's like a really stressful day, or during mealtime and cooking. That just helps you to get into that kind of rhythm. And I urge families to do that a lot. Of, instead of being in our heads a lot or thinking about the stresses, sometimes music is a really powerful tool to do that. And I've obviously played a lot of instruments with children, and I've played instruments of my own, piano, and the sitar, an Indian string instrument, and just tapping into that kind of hobby just helps you to create that physical contact with something that's really nurturing to you and something that's really grounding as well too. So that's sound for you. Taste is something that, we can talk about this a little later, but taste and just noticing the flavors of things, noticing the textures of things. Now that I went from being, vegetarian to vegan these past 5 or 6 years, I have really cared about what I'm putting in my body.
Yeah.
And I know that I mentioned that before. I didn't really care about what I was putting in my body. I would eat whatever I needed to eat to sustain myself. But now I really care about what are the benefits of this food, of this produce, of this product I'm putting in my body. Is it going to fill me up? What's the protein like? How can I incorporate this with other flavors? Like food is fun.
Yeah.
Food is really fun. So if you're a parent out there who wants to make that shift to healthier eating, especially if you have an anxious or a sensitive child, a great thing to do is to start with softer foods, yogurts, puddings, tortillas, hummus, things like that, where the texture isn't throwing them off too much or throwing you off too much. Starting out having that base and then adding in new things into your life. And you can do this as an adult, but just noticing, the texture, the smell, the taste of all of that. Doing that is going to help you be more present to what you're putting in your body, and you'll kind of have to pause and stop and digest. And so now I can tell when I'm anxious because I am putting things in my mouth, just kind of like dozing off, gazing off into the wilderness. But when I'm more present about that, that's when things really taste really good and they make me want to have them more. Yeah. So that's a special thing where when families are connecting over food and your child's actually learning about food and not just it's mealtime. Food now has to go to my body, but your child's like, oh, okay, like this is where this came from, or we can go shopping together and go to a farmer's market, or just take a trip and get what we need to. Yeah. As well too. And so depending on your budget, depending on your needs, there's a lot of ways. I've watched so many cooking shows in my life. I'm a foodie. Obviously.
This is like the fourth thing we've had in common.
Yeah. And I've had done a lot of cooking classes. Cooking classes, I don't know about now in the pandemic, but I've done a lot of cooking classes at like the local university here too with friends. And just being introduced to foods in new ways just creates that environment of, okay, now this is a special time where we can not only have our food, but we can make this some kind of a ritual or make this something that feels really good and really important to us. I've had a lot of parents who've talked to me about, eating in moderation, treating your children on the weekends, not wanting them to get into that habit of, okay, now I can just, eat whatever, or that's the only thing the child asks for is like cake or candy or a treat or whatnot. But when you create something that's a little bit more of a ritual and set those kinds of boundaries of, incorporating that kind of dessert, I think alongside with the meal really helps the child to have that variety of what they can eat. And it's not just, oh, this is a special treat type of thing. This is the only thing my child's going to think about. But incorporating that wholeheartedly into this is just another food and it tastes like this and smells like this and this is how it goes with this. Those kinds of things I think really, really help with taste.
I agree with that. So you in the middle of that, you mentioned the word budget. So my first thought was someone may think, oh, farmer's market, expensive yogurt, or I have to buy expensive produce. Talk to us who need to hear that it doesn't have to be an added expense. It's just the experience and how you can work it into your budget.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that added expense. It could be also growing your own food if that's accessible to you. It isn't always accessible to others, but maybe sharing a garden. It could be taking that canned food and adding in other herbs and spices, figuring out other different kinds of cuisines that you may like too. It could be going in and making savory things sweet, making sweet things savory, and getting really creative about food. When you get creative about food and create those things with your family, that's very empowering to be able to do that, so that it's not just like a feeling of lack right? Or a feeling of comparison. It's a feeling of, okay, this is what we have, this is what we're going to do with it. And I encourage you, there are a lot of food competitions and shows out there. You could watch them, a lot of them on YouTube or wherever, that have those kinds of ideas with budget meals, with freezer foods and things like that too. I for myself, I'm not an authority on nutrition and food and things like that, but I don't, I've eaten the gamut of what I've eaten out takeouts and frozen foods and all sorts of things as well. But I myself have had to learn to love cooking, learning to love putting something together. The other day, this week, I just got these like sun-dried tomato wraps, tortillas and things like that, because I would always go and get takeout and get some local food, which is amazing. But I was like, you know what? I can eat these now on my own. And I've created so many different combinations of what I can put in them, because it tastes really good and it's empowering and it's actually really fun with different cuisines as well. Like that too.
It becomes so often when I would get off work, when I was working, besides being at home, one of the first things that I would want to do on the weekends is like to cook during the weekends, or like on Sunday, I would have 100 different dishes out, because that was my form of relaxing as well. Exactly. So it's all about your perspective and how you look at it. And then that ability to be able to create healthy meals for my family.
Yeah. And doing that also, I would say, when I was living on my own in an apartment complex, having friends over, having neighbors over and doing that with them. And granted, you can do whatever feels safe to you in the pandemic, but sometimes it can be as great as, having like a video chat with somebody, with a family member, friend, family member, and creating that meal with them too.
Yeah.
And enjoying them.
Those are great ideas. So talk to me you talked about healthy eating, but how does that actually impact the child? Go a little deeper on that impact.
Yeah, healthy eating, I think, they're going to get to, gosh, I love this topic so much. They're going to get to intuitively know their bodies more and what they're filling themselves up with, and what impacts their moods, what makes them feel good, what they feel comfortable being around in terms of food. And so the more you incorporate, where they, and it could be a teen, it could be a toddler, a younger child, but something that, kind of noticing those links between really sweet things or things that they don't like, and how it impacts their mood, if they get enough sleep, if they're cranky, if they have the physical energy that they're needing, especially with energy drinks and stuff that people want to put in their bodies. And for each family, it's about finding that sense of moderation, right? It's similar to screen time, right, in which, parents want to definitely cut that out at a certain point, usually, because they're finding it's taking away from everything. But it's also talking to your child about why something isn't healthy and why something isn't great for them in the long run. I think if you talk about things in the long run, and talk about goals and visions, which I do with coaching, then it's easier to start cutting something out a little bit, start lessening that and weaning that off of your child too. If you have that, and if you have some kind of substitute that you like. I was talking with a family maybe 5-6 months ago about the transition away from alcohol, actually, into something that served them better. And I'm not an addictions recovery coach or anything like that too, and I know some amazing ones, but just whatever lifestyle change you want to make, making sure, incorporating the family into that, so that the child isn't like, I have to eat all the healthy things and everyone else can eat whatever, right? If they have those goals of eating healthier or maybe losing weight or anything that they want to do, but just incorporating the family, I think, is a really important thing. I know I've gone through, it hasn't been the easiest transition of being vegan, even with other people being vegetarian. It's just like that's that switch, but sticking to my own guns and sticking to, hey, this is what fills me up. I could easily go out there and eat something else, but I know I'm not going to feel great. Right. It's going to really change, right? Yeah. And it's because of what I have to gain from eating vegan food is what keeps me coming back to it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I know, and you have a program. I think it's one of your programs or one of your trainings, and it's called SCENT, SCENT. It's a process that you take families through. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, scent is it goes in with sensory self-care, but it is a 5-step process of 5 areas I look at with families, whether they are coming to me for coaching or whether it's someone who is a parent or a family member, or someone who, it could be a student or a grandparent or somebody, a caregiver who's coming to me for meditation and breath work. And we look at 5 areas. So S is for self-care. Mm-hmm. We look at your self-care. I have a huge community of other parent coaches I network with, and we, usually parents are coming to us for issues with a parent-child relationship, right, or a partner relationship, or some kind of thing that happened in life, a life event, or potty training or sleep, usually on my end. And I always have to ask the parent about self-care and actually see, because if they're coming to me with really stressful things, I want to make sure that on the flip side, they are doing things to offer that stress, mm-hmm, and what that feels like for them. So I'm looking at S for self-care. What is self-care like for you and your partner and your child too, especially if it's a family related thing. Right. C is for communication, effective communication. And so that's looking at both verbal and non-verbal communication and what that looks like for the family and the ways that interaction is happening in the family too. And so for some people, for if they're coming to me for meditation and breath work, for some people it's how can I set those boundaries around my self-care time? Right. For parents, it could be how am I coming across to my child, and how is my family perceiving that? And what are those triggers? What are those reactions that are coming up for me? And so on and so forth. There's so much to communication in of itself. Emotions, especially if you have sensitive and anxious children, you're dealing with a lot of emotions as a parent, and your child is too. And so identifying the specific emotions and what
I'm going to have you pause because you froze. So we have a clear cut between the scent, the C, the communication. And did you start on E?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's pretend like I'm writing the time down real quick. Let's pause like 3 to 5 seconds so that Mark has some time here, and then just start on E like you were just in the middle of it.
Okay. So E is for emotion, and that's whether you're a parent who's going through a lot of emotions or you have a child especially if you have an anxious or sensitive child, you want to talk about those specific emotions, and it's creating that break in that stigma around mental health that we can't talk about emotions. Especially I talk with a lot of dads or boys, especially in the teen years too, about talking about feelings, mm-hmm, and knowing that it's an empowering thing to talk about specific feelings, and looking at how those feelings, what they look like in the body, how they feel, and taking those actions on those feelings and what to do with that, how to journal them out, how to talk about them, all sorts of things like that. Yeah. N is for notice and celebration. How are you as a family celebrating life? How are you finding gratitude? How are you looking at the bigger picture? Are you scheduling in things that feel good to you? Right. Instead of the other things that are going on. That ties in with self-care, obviously. But also as a family connection, that's really a place where I'm really focused on is family connection. And so T is the bigger picture. That's truth. T is truth. And that's the bigger picture of what you want to see for your family, your visions, your goals, especially after the pandemic. A lot of people are making big life changes right now, or within the pandemic. A lot of people are making big lives right now too, especially. But just focusing on that and what you want to see. I'm working with a family now who is in a transition period, and they know where they want to be, and it's that time of taking those steps and making those steps on the journey of life and as a team unit too. And I know Stephanie, you and I talked about that for me with where life is taking me, but and getting excited about that. Yeah. Because I've been through a lot of life changes in my life, and I'm sure you have as well too. We all have, and just knowing those steps of where we've been and where we are and where we want to be, I think is really, really helpful to sit down and talk about that. It's really scary to talk about those kinds of things. Yeah. with people, but having a trusted mentor, friend, or coach really helps.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. We talked about healthy eating and then we talked about scent, but I want to go back to healthy eating just a little bit because there's one thing I forgot to ask. So a lot of times the kids are strong-willed, they're picky, or it's just a sensitive child. And you talked a little bit about as it relates to a sensitive child, introducing maybe a softer food first. But what are some other tips that you can give parents for that strong-willed child?
I would say I love giving children, especially younger children, or it could even be older children or yourself, giving yourself no more than two options really, really helps you to have that sense of variety and not feel like you're eating the same thing each day. I know that a lot of families, they love to meal prep, but I also think that, there are families out there we like eating different things every day, right?
Yeah.
And so just having that kind of food prep of prepping what you really need to, but allowing in those moments of creativity. So for especially picky eaters or sensitive or anxious children, giving those advanced questions or cues as soon as you can of planning out meals, I think is easier to do than getting to mealtime and going nuts and everyone being really hungry as well too, and being really stressed out. I think it's really helpful. The more you're able to do that, that helps to build that trust with your child that yes, this food's going to come and they're looking forward to it and things like that. And having maybe Friday nights or having whenever Sundays or even every day where a child can be incorporated in the process of picking out what they want to eat too. And so many parents are scared of giving children those choices because then it'll be too much. It'll be too many choices and you won't be able to make a decision, but that's where you set those boundaries and do all of that. And so obviously with coaching, we go through a lot of that and do a lot of this role playing of healthy eating, of what to say to your child who is a quote unquote picky eater and helping to recognize the foods that they liked and making sure that when you're going on a grocery run or ordering food or growing food or any of that kind of stuff, that you're thinking about what your child needs and what they like and what maybe they could have that variation on too.
Yeah, I like that because that gives them a sense of ownership, a sense of control, and they're more likely to, you don't have to say, let's walk in the grocery store and you get to pick what you want, period. You can also narrow that down for the child too, but them being able to own that and to have a sense of control, that is going to help them want to eat, want to be better and
want to be interested in food. Yeah.
And you want that interest because it can go awry really quick. So I have two more questions for you, three really, but one is strictly about you, but this one I want you to give. So I want you to give a tip to the audience, something that they can do that's no cost to them and they can implement right away.
I would say, honestly, with healthy eating, with self-care, it can become really overwhelming and, with your mind can go in different directions. Having someone in your family is great, but also even a friend or a mentor, somebody just having a kind of an accountability buddy to help you, especially in these warm weather days, but wherever you are in the world, just having someone to talk about self-care or food or healthy eating or making plans of what you can do in terms of all of that, so that it's not too overwhelming for parents, especially. I know they can feel alone and they can feel guilt and shame around asking for help.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned accountability because I teach a mindset class on Wednesdays, and that's what we talked about today. Accountability, finding someone that you can be accountable to and that will be accountable to you. It can help you. It's like having a friend with structure.
Exactly, having that friend with structure, and it's fun and someone you're like looking forward to talking to, because obviously if it's not someone you're looking forward to talking to, you're not going to want to do it. So it's someone who helps you feel connected and belong and understands you and that you align with, and that it gives you that intrinsic motivation for what you want to do.
So Aparna, tell me, what was the switch in your life that made you the woman that you are today?
The switch in my life that made me the woman that I am today is that switch to I talked a lot about all these things, but just having that confidence to, um, for me to be aware of my sensitivities in life and self-regulation, and to create that self-care routine for me
Yeah.
really, really empowered me to become aware of myself and notice the things, how things in life are impacting me, and how I can manage them and not let life overtake me.
Yeah.
As well too, is the biggest shift for me 5 or 6 years ago. It allowed to have that sense of balance and those boundaries that I can share with family as well too.
These are what you shared is so great for moms. I know so many moms out there that are struggling in one way or another, and to know that they can have someone that they can reach out to, and or have an opportunity for some tips and tools on how to
Yeah.
manage their children in their life. This is very impactful. So I thank you for it. Tell folks how they can get in contact with you, and you also have a free offer for them. So make sure you tell them about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, my company is called Beauty in Parenting, IN. And so you can go to beautyinparenting.com, and that lists like my offerings and services, and how you can find me on social media as well, on Instagram and Facebook there at Beauty in Parenting. I also have a free Facebook group called the Sensory Self-Care Group, and that's
Hmm.
a nice little tight-knit group for moms, educators, and caregivers worldwide, where we just share inspiration of self-care ideas. And sometimes there are monthly challenges, or I go live with questions or meditations, which are fun too. But that's just a nice little nugget of inspiration for others. And I offer a free calming clarity guide, which I love giving out. It's a one-page PDF that you can print out or screenshot on your phone. And that's got 4 deep breathing exercises, really short, practical ones with essential oil pairings as well too, for those who love oils. And I know you do, Stephanie, and
Oh, oils.
which are really fun to play with. And so that's just a nice little guide and a reminder of ways that you can pause in your day too.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for sharing with folks. I'm sure everyone, make sure that you check out Beauty in Parenting, and I'll make sure that I put the information in the link below. Everyone, here's to your health. I am so excited for you because you just finished another episode of The Switch, which means you are the fierce person I already knew you were. If you're ready to join an exclusive group of other fierce high performers like you, a group where you can bounce ideas off one another and ask questions, be sure to join our exclusive Facebook community. You can find the link below.